Good morning, friends, and happy Divine Mother's Day to all of you. I was just sitting up here for the first 25 minutes of service and feeling so grateful for this beautiful introduction that we've just had to Divine Mother in all of these various forms through the chanting and the melodies. And thank you, Todd, for that extended, beautiful melody. We don't get to hear that very often when we hear this duet of the Divine Mother, just the dance of the piano. And you can feel the beauty of Divine Mother that's being animated through everything, through the poetry that was read and the whispers. And our first song that was being chanted today when we came out here at 10 o'clock, "Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light." I couldn't help but I was having just a little fit of laughter with myself because last night, we hosted a Divine Mother Kirtan in our community temple, and it was so just really sweet and beautiful and lovely. For about 90 minutes, we sang to Divine Mother and all of the Divine Mother chants, and there's a plethora of them on this path that we get to choose from. And Rose, who was helping me early in the week to just pick the flow and the chants that we were going to chant, when we came to this chant, "Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light," she was telling me that when she has two nephews who are not little anymore, now they're 16 and 17, but they're about 7 feet tall, but when they were about 3 or 4 years old and just little tiny babies, one of her nephews, when he heard that song, he was always singing, "Come out of the darkness, Mother, baby in thy light," and holding himself as a sweet little baby in thy light. And it's perfect for Mother's Day. So I was up here, I couldn't help but just sing along, and suddenly the words, I lost them, and it was just baby in thy light, baby in thy light. But it was actually just a really sweet reminder of the beauty of Mother's Day and the aspect of Divine Mother that we so gratefully are privileged to celebrate on this path that Yogananda brought to us. Because what is the mother aspect? The mother is the sustainer of life. She carries the baby in her womb and sustains the baby and gives life to the baby. And then the mother is often the first teacher. But along with being the first teacher, she's the first playmate. And she's laughing along joyously with the little baby. And she's guiding and nourishing and sustaining the child's life all throughout their journey into whatever it is that they're going to become in the world. And of course, that's what Divine Mother does for each one of us. She sustains us and nourishes us. She disciplines us when we need to be disciplined, corrects our path when we're navigating off on a wrong turn, and she plays with us and she dances with us. And we see that through all of the beauty and the poetry. Yogananda spoke to these two aspects of God, as God the Father and God as the Divine Mother. And the aspect of the Father is that aspect which is behind all veils of delusion, that state of perfect wisdom, perfect stillness, unmovable and impenetrable. And of course, that's the trajectory for each one of us in our life. We will return to that place of pure wisdom beyond all thought and beyond all reality. But I can speak for myself and many of us in the room. We're not there yet. We don't close our eyes and just be gone from this world and this planet and our egos and merge back into that perfect stillness. And so Yogananda speaks to the aspect of Divine Mother as the painter who animates the beauty of life, the poetry behind the words, the harmonies behind the melodies that we're singing, that she's animating and playing with us through the flowers, through the trees, through the beauty of nature. And she speaks to us through her tenderness and through her beauty. And she animates that aspect of joy that opens our heart and draws us more and more deeply in love with her, with God. It would be wonderful, and there are great yogis and great saints out there who can sit and close their eyes and find that wisdom. But how beautiful that we get to also seek that wisdom by opening our heart and feeling the joy and the beauty that's dancing through everything. We get the playmate and the disciplinarian. We get the sustaining, the life, the nurturing of all of what the mother represents when we just open our hearts to her. And that's where this reading comes back, and it comes in so perfectly in line. Last week, Shanti was sharing with the first half of the reading of Martha and Mary. And just for those of you who may need a tiny refresher, Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him, absorbing the energy of her guru. And Martha is toiling away in the kitchen. And she comes out and rebukes Jesus and says, "Why aren't you asking my sister to help me?" And he corrects her. And he says, there is ultimately only one path. And last week, Shanti was speaking about how these readings come at Mother's Day every week. And of course, it's just divinely serendipitous that we get to see that. Because these two aspects, and even in my own life, when I was contemplating Martha and Mary last week and all through the week and holding it, I was thinking about how for most of my life, I've considered these two aspects in more of an obtuse way, that I'm either a Martha or I'm a Mary. And if I'm not here at the church serving and having to set chairs up, I can sit down and be Mary. But if I have to be out working and doing sound and all the things, then I have to be Martha. Not in my energy, of course, but just that there's these two aspects of it. And we're either one or the other. But the reality is that the line, the subtlety in our consciousness between the Martha and the Mary is a moment-by-moment decision. It's a moment-by-moment interaction. In every single moment, we have the opportunity to lift our consciousness to the consciousness of the divine, to that place of inner communion, which is, of course, what Mary represents to us, whether we're lying at the feet of our guru or, like Martha, we're cooking a feast for all of the guests. The question is, are we willing to open our hearts to Divine Mother? Are we willing to light that noble taper that is in our hearts and offer it constantly? I was thinking about this even in meditation. In meditation, we keep our gaze uplifted to the point between the eyebrows. No matter where the awareness is, sometimes the awareness is here. Sometimes we're listening to a mantra, hong sa, as we're repeating it. Sometimes we're tuning into the flow of our breath. But the gaze never wavers. The gaze is always here. And that's the Mary aspect. No matter what we're doing in our lives, in our consciousness, the subtleness is it's so fine. It's not this obtuse this or that. Can we keep our gaze uplifted? No matter what the awareness, the toiling is that we're doing in our lives, do we feel that taper, that noble taper lit in our hearts? Are we offering ourselves to Divine Mother? Just as we say in the festival every week, Jesus appeared to Babaji and came together, and he said that we have to unite and we have to create a new spark of spirituality. We have to remind people of the noble taper of inner communion. We have to remind people that God lives here in our hearts, not in our outward duties, not in our outward tasks. And that's what this reading tells us, that we can gain good karma, but we won't gain God if we're not keeping God, if we're not keeping our awareness there. And so that got me thinking about what is it that keeps us from the Mary consciousness? What is it that keeps us from just giving everything to God in that moment? And of course, it's the fear that we're not worthy of that love, the fear that if we gave everything, if we just jumped off the cliff into that pool of Divine Mother's cooling light and cooling love, the blue lotus feet, each one of these chants speaking to that aspect, coaxing us closer and closer to feeling Divine Mother. But the ego tells us, well, just wait. What if? What's going to happen on the other side of that cliff? What if Divine Mother isn't there to meet us? And Yogananda tells a beautiful story. It actually comes... It's one of the chants that we sing often here. You can hear it. I guess we actually don't sing it that often, but devotee, I can give thee salvation, but not my love and devotion. For when I give that away, I give myself away. And I was reading this little booklet this week, Yogananda. I only have a PDF version of it that Sai Ganesh gave me a few years ago, a little booklet that Yogananda wrote on Divine Mother. And he tells the story in here of how the devotee comes walking up to Divine Mother, and Divine Mother says, "You've been naughty, haven't you?" And the devotee says, yes, but I want you. And Divine Mother says, well, you've been naughty. And Divine Mother coaxes the devotee again. When I was thinking about this story today, just a tiny side note, I don't see her here, but we have a beautiful family that's a part of our membership here. And one of their daughters goes to our Living Wisdom school. And I happen to, my arrival every day to the Sangha coincides with the kindergarten snack time. So I've made it a habit of having snack with the kindergartners every day. They're all sitting outside and eating their meal, and I sit down at the little tiny benches, which are about that big, and sit down and have a snack with them. And there's one sweet young girl, and she's 5 or 6 years old, but about 3 feet tall. And so the other day on Friday, she came running up to me, and so she was standing just right in front of me, looking up and talking to me about something that she had that she was so excited about. And she had to just look like this because she's so little, and here I am. I'm not that tall, but compared to her, and she was just looking straight up and look at what I have and showing me this thing because she was so close to me. And when I read this story that I'm about to tell you, that's what I was just imagining. Here we are with Divine Mother, and Divine Mother says, "You've been naughty." And you go, "Yes, but I love you, Divine Mother." And she's just standing right there, and we're giving all of our love and attention. And Divine Mother says, well, and so in this story that Yogananda is telling us, Divine Mother says again, "You've been naughty," and we say, "Oh, but we want to be with you. We want only you." And Divine Mother says, "Well, I'll give you salvation. I'll give you wisdom. Ask of me anything but my love, because when I give my love away, I give you everything. I have nothing left to give." And we say, "We know we've been naughty, but we want you. We want your love." And Yogananda says that Divine Mother's love for us is so great and is so strong that she can't help but give in. And then there we are, and she gives us everything, her very last, everything that she has. She's pouring it down on us constantly. And so that question that keeps us from jumping off the precipice, will Divine Mother be there to meet us, to nourish us, to love us, to receive our love? The answer is we have it already. It's ours already. Are we willing to open our hearts, to risk everything the ego wants to hold on to, and to feel that love of Divine Mother? Just as Mary is opening her heart, lying at the feet of the Guru, nothing else exists but the love of God, the love of the Guru, and there she is, willing to give all of herself. But when we're afraid, when we hold back just a little bit, then suddenly those seeds of doubt, of resentment, of fear, they just get imprinted onto our astral spine and they grow. And that's where Martha is. Martha has to measure and weigh. What is it that I need to do? How much do I need to toil? And that thought gets stuck in our mind, and suddenly we begin to measure. What do I need to do to be worthy of Divine Mother's love? How can I be good enough? And the answer is she's sitting right there saying, "You may be naughty, but I love you already. I give you everything." And when we are willing to risk that, to know that for certain, then we're living in that state of Mary consciousness. We're living in that state of inner communion that Yogananda teaches us is so necessary. There's a beautiful story that illustrates this. Many of you will know it, in the life of Ganesha. And one day, there's a great lord, I think his name is Kubera, Lord Kubera, who's the lord of wealth and has a lot of luxuries, and he wants to show off all of his luxuries to the world. So he invites all of the other gods and lords and all of the great royalty to come to his home for a great banquet. And he says, well, I must also invite Shiva and Parvati there. They must be a part of this. They must see the wealth that I've acquired. And of course, Lord Shiva, being who he is, the all-knowing, omnipresent, he reads right through what Lord Kubera says. And so he sends his son, Ganesha, instead. And he says, I'm sending my son Ganesha to your feast. I hope that you will satisfy him, give him all that he needs. And of course, Lord Kubera says, yes, of course. And they sit down, and Ganesha sits at the table, and he begins by eating everything on the table, every last drop and morsel of food. And he says, I'm still not satisfied. And Lord Kubera is rushing into the kitchen. What else do we have? He eats all of the food in the castle, and he's still not satisfied. He starts eating everything off of the table, the plates and the silverware and the cups. And then suddenly he starts eating everything off of the walls, trying to find that sense of satisfaction. And in fear and despair, Lord Kubera runs to Shiva and Parvati, and he says, you must help me. Ganesha is going to eat everything that I own. He'll eat my entire castle. And the story mostly talks about how Parvati, I should say most of the stories I've heard, Parvati makes a bowl of rice, and she brings the bowl of rice, and Shiva and Parvati hand Ganesha just one grain of rice, and he sits and he's satisfied. The very first time I heard this story, it was told to me that Parvati comes and she gives him one drop of milk, which I just thought was so much sweeter. Rice, milk, it's all symbolic of the same thing, but the milk of the mother. So we're going to use that story today. But I know there are many of you here who might come and correct me if I didn't say that. So Parvati comes and she feeds Ganesha just one drop of milk, and Ganesha is satisfied because the nourishment of the mother, the love of the mother, the stillness that's present there, that's all that he needed to be satisfied. And of course, that's how we live in the world. That symbolism of what that represents, we're out there just clamoring and grabbing and trying, measuring, weighing. How can I be enough? When will I be satisfied? When will I be fulfilled? Realizing and knowing somewhere in our minds, otherwise we wouldn't be drawn here sitting in this room, that the answer is God's love. And the question is, what keeps us from jumping off that cliff? What keeps us from diving in and knowing that truth and knowing that for certain, if we open our hearts, if we pray, if we give ourselves completely into Divine Mother, that she'll be there to meet us. You know, one other story I was thinking of, I was raised Catholic, as many of you know. So the first introduction that I had to Divine Mother in any form was Mother Mary. And I can remember when I was preparing for one of my, not confirmation, it must have been my catechism, when you get to receive the Eucharist. I was in class one day, and our catechism teacher was saying to us that if everybody in the world were to pray to Mother Mary at the exact same time, that she would end all wars. And I was about 7 years old, and this was the most exciting thing I had ever heard. There was just such joy in that. And I went home that night, and I had a habit of praying before I went to bed every night. And I think that I've never prayed harder, probably even to this day. I may have never prayed harder in my life. And I went home and prayed and prayed and prayed and asked Mother Mary to just open her heart, open all of our hearts, so that we could feel that connectivity, that joy, so that all war and pain would cease. And of course, when I was 7, I didn't realize it in the same way that I realize it now. That what would that truly mean if everybody were praying to Mother Mary, if everyone were praying to Divine Mother, to God, at the same moment, asking for war to end? It's not a shift on the outward level, it's a shift of consciousness individually in each one of us, one by one, to find Divine Mother. But this is the promise of the mother aspect. This is the sweetness of the mother who lifts us up, baby in thy light, just holding us so closely that we can dream that largely, that we can feel and know that that much love is present and available and rushing in to us at any given moment. If we have the strength, the courage, and ultimately the faith to jump off the cliff. Because that's what true faith is. True faith isn't taking a leap of faith at the new job or moving or whatever it may be in our lives that we say, I trust in God and I'm going to move forward. Faith ultimately is trust that God loves us so unconditionally that no matter what we do, God is walking side by side with us. The Divine Mother is holding our hand, the playmate and the disciplinarian. And when we have that faith, when we know that love so securely, it doesn't matter what happens in the world. It doesn't matter if we get, tripped up and start tumbling down the hill and say, well, that hurt, or whether everything works out perfectly the way that we expect it to, because we're protected in that light. Because the heart is open, because the heart knows that Divine Mother is dancing right along with us in every single aspect of our life, that there's no running away from that love, that no matter what happens to us, we are one with that divine light. That is what true stillness looks like. Last week, Shanti was referencing the story when Sri Yukteswar meets Babaji in the autobiography of a yogi, and he runs restlessly and he says, I must bring you something. I must bring you treats. Wait right here. And he runs home and he comes back and Babaji's gone. And the next time that he sees Babaji, this is one of my favorite stories, because those of you that know me well know that I can sometimes have a tendency to pout a little bit. And Babaji, the next time that Babaji comes to meet Sri Yukteswar, he's pouting, and he won't speak to Babaji. Here he is, the Maha Avatar, and he won't speak to Babaji. And here he's saying, what's the matter? What's happening here? And Babaji comes up to him with all the love in the world, and he says, you're angry. And this is the line that Shanti was referencing last week. And Sri Yukteswar says, I wanted to bring you sweetmeats. I wanted to bring you treats. I wanted to offer something to you, and you disappeared. And he says, I was fairly extinguished into the ether by the gusts of your restlessness. And what is that restlessness? Babaji doesn't want our treats. Babaji doesn't need our offering in a frenzy of, let me bring something to you. Divine Mother wants our heart still. Divine Mother wants our perfect devotion. Divine Mother wants us to be one-pointedly focused in our love for her, to open our hearts. Whether we're offering treats, whether we're setting up chairs, no matter what it is that we're doing, Divine Mother wants the stillness of our hearts. The restlessness is the measuring and the weighing and the counting. Am I worthy enough? If I do this, if I pray this many times, if I meditate this much longer, if I get better at guitar and can just play the song that much better, then Divine Mother will love me. No, she loves you already. Play guitar to open your heart. Set up chairs to feel the joy of service. Offer prasad to the gurus, because your heart wants to give all that you have to them. But what we do on the outside doesn't matter in comparison to what's happening within. That's the lesson that Martha and Mary can teach us. That's the line that's just so finely bound there that in any single moment, it's a moment-by-moment decision, not an event by event or a circumstance by circumstance. Where is your attention? Where is your devotion? Where is the noble taper? And when we feel that, when we actually jump off that cliff, when we dive into that pool and trust that Divine Mother is there, giving us everything, holding us in her light, that is true bliss. That is true joy. That's our salvation. The wisdom, the salvation that she promises us at first. Let me give you wisdom. Let me give you salvation. It all comes. The only answer is to love God. The only task is to love God. It's what gets us closer and closer in everything we do. Do it with the bliss of the heart. Open up, feel the poetry. Look for Divine Mother behind everything that you see. Stop and smell the roses. Feel her. Speak with her. Bring her along. Carry her in your heart. And I promise you, she will meet you there, because there is no other reality. Happy Mother's Day.
Join on the refrain if you feel to. From the depths of slumber as I ascend the spiral stairway of wakefulness, I will whisper, separation from thee, I will taste thee and mentally say, God, God, God. No matter where I go, the spotlight of my mind will ever keep turning on thee, and in the battle din of activity, my silent war cry will be, God, God, God. When boisterous storms of trial shriek, and when worries howl at me, I will drown their noises, loudly chanting, God, God, God. When my mind weaves dreams, dreams, with threads of memories, on that magic cloth will I emboss, God, God, God. Every night in time of deepest sleep, when my peace dreams and calls joy, joy, my joy comes singing evermore, God, God, God. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul will constantly hum, unheard by